Stop obsessing over the number 10,000 steps a day. In metabolic biology, the timing of your movement matters far more than the distance you walk. You may reach 10,000 steps. Exercise every morning. Even train very hard. But if after every meal you sit still, your body still has to face a situation that very few people notice. Right after you eat, especially a meal high in carbohydrates, glucose begins to flood into the blood. This process happens very fast. Within minutes, blood sugar can rise more than you expect. Imagine your blood vessels like a highway. And after a meal, trucks full of energy start pouring in all at once. If the body cannot handle it in time, the excess glucose puts pressure on the entire system. The pancreas must react immediately. Insulin is released to move glucose out of the blood and into the cells. This is a survival mechanism. Without insulin, high blood sugar would damage blood vessels. But insulin does not only clear the road, insulin is also a storage signal. When insulin rises, the body temporarily stops burning fat. Fat cells close. Energy release is locked, and the body switches into storage mode. This happens after every large meal. But in modern life, these glucose spikes repeat many times each day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, sugary drinks. Each time, insulin rises again. Fat gets locked again, and the vascular system takes more stress. The problem is not only weight gain. Repeated glucose spikes are linked to low-grade vascular inflammation, reduced insulin sensitivity, and accumulation of visceral fat. What is surprising is that most people try to solve this problem by exercising more. They try to reach the step count. Try to train longer. Try to burn more calories. But biology does not only care how much you move, it cares when you move. There is a moment in the day when even light movement can completely change the way the body handles energy. And that moment is right after eating. Part 1. The silent crisis after a meal, glucose rises. Insulin rise. Fat gets locked right after you eat. The body enters a metabolic phase that very few people notice. Food is digested. Carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, and glucose begins to enter the bloodstream. This process does not happen slowly as we imagine. With refined starch or sugar, blood glucose can rise very quickly within minutes. Imagine your blood vessels like a harbor, and after a meal, containers full of energy are being unloaded all at once. If too much cargo arrives too fast, the transport system becomes overloaded. The body does not allow that to happen. The pancreas reacts almost immediately by releasing insulin. Insulin works like a coordinator, telling the cells to open their doors to receive glucose. The liver takes some. The muscles take some. The rest is sent into fat tissue for storage. Here is an important point that many people do not notice. When insulin rises, the body does not only store energy, it also temporarily stops burning fat. Lipolysis, the process of releasing fat, is suppressed. That means while insulin is high, the body almost does not use fat as fuel. If this only happened occasionally, the body could handle it easily. But in modern life, blood sugar rises many times every day. High-carb breakfast, high-starch lunch, high-energy dinner, snacks between meals. Each time, insulin rises again. Fat burning gets locked again, and the body stays in storage mode longer. Over time, this does not only increase fat, it also reduces insulin sensitivity. When cells become less sensitive to insulin, the pancreas must release more to achieve the same effect. That is when blood sugar starts to fluctuate more. hunger appears sooner, and energy during the day becomes unstable. Another consequence that is rarely talked about is stress on the blood vessels. Each time glucose rises high, the vessel walls are exposed to a stronger oxidative environment. If this repeats constantly, low-grade inflammation can appear, and visceral fat begins to accumulate around the liver, intestines, and pancreas. What is important to notice is that all of this can happen even if you do not eat too much. If you finish eating and then sit still, glucose enters the blood faster than the body can use it. And when it is not used, it will be stored. This is why many people exercise every day but still struggle to lose fat. Not because they move too little, but because after eating, the body has no chance to use the energy that just came in. The good news is, the body has a very simple mechanism to solve this. No heavy workout needed. No long running required. No need to reach 10,000 steps. Just light movement at the right time can completely change the way the body handles glucose. Part 2. The glucose vacuum mechanism. Why walking right after eating flattens blood sugar right after a meal? The body is processing a large amount of glucose entering the blood. Normally, insulin is responsible for clearing most of this sugar. But insulin is not the only pathway. Muscles have their own mechanism. And this mechanism is only activated when you move. When muscles contract, an energy sensor inside the cell turns on. That sensor is called AMPK. AMPK works like a survival switch. When it is activated, the cell understands that energy is being used and more fuel needs to come in immediately. At that moment, a group of transport proteins called GLUT4 moves to the surface of the muscle cell. You can imagine GLUT4 as new doors opening, allowing glucose to go directly from the blood into the muscle. The special thing about this process is that it does not require insulin. That means when you move, the body can lower blood sugar without forcing the pancreas to work harder. This is why even light walking after eating can completely change the glucose curve. Instead of rising sharply and then crashing, blood sugar rises more slowly, falls more gently, and stays more stable. When blood sugar is stable, insulin does not need to spike. When insulin does not spike, fat burning is not locked for long. This creates a very large difference in metabolism. If you sit still after a meal, glucose has only one path storage. If you move, glucose has another path immediate use. And the body always prefers using energy before storing it. What is interesting is that this mechanism works very fast. You do not need to walk for an hour. You do not need heavy exercise. You do not need to run. As soon as muscles start contracting, GLUT4 is already activated. That is why timing of movement is more important than total step count. Walking 1 hour in the morning does not help handle the glucose from dinner. But walking 10 minutes right after eating can significantly reduce the glucose spike. Many metabolic studies show that post-meal blood sugar is one of the strongest factors linked to visceral fat gain and reduced insulin sensitivity. And what is remarkable is that just light movement at the right time is enough to change this response. Part 5 10 minutes at the right time versus 30 minutes at the wrong time, the difference in blood sugar biology. Many people believe that as long as they exercise long enough, the body will handle all the energy they eat. But in metabolic biology, the timing of movement can be more important than the duration. Continuous glucose monitoring studies show something very interesting. Just walking for about 10 minutes right after a meal can reduce the glucose peak more effectively than walking for 30 minutes. But starting 1 hour later, it may sound hard to believe. But this makes complete sense when viewed through the mechanism. After eating, glucose starts rising immediately. Within about 20 to 60 minutes, blood sugar usually reaches its peak. If you sit still during this period, all the glucose must be handled by insulin. The pancreas has to release more. Fat tissue receives more energy. Fat burning stays paused longer. But if you start moving right away, the muscles use glucose as it enters the blood. This reduces the pressure on insulin from the very beginning. Imagine a meal like a cargo ship arriving at a port. If no one unloads the cargo, containers pile up on the dock. If you wait and unload later, the port is already overloaded. But if workers are ready when the ship arrives, the cargo moves immediately. Inside the body, muscles are those workers. When you walk right after eating, muscles start taking glucose as soon as it appears. When you wait too long, glucose has already flooded the blood. Insulin has already risen, and the body has already switched into storage mode. At that point, exercise is still helpful, but you miss the most important moment. Another important point is that post-meal blood sugar does not only affect daily energy. Repeated glucose spikes are linked to vascular inflammation, reduced insulin sensitivity, and accumulation of visceral fat. This can happen even in people who are not overweight. That is why controlling post-meal blood sugar is not only for people with diabetes, it is a fundamental part of metabolic health, and the simplest way to control it is not to exercise harder, but to move at the right time. Just 10 minutes of light walking right after eating can change the way the body handles energy. Part 4. Why 10,000 steps matter less than 10 minutes at the right time. The number 10,000 steps a day sounds scientific, but in reality, it does not come from biology. This number appeared from a pedometer marketing campaign in Japan in the 1960s. It is easy to remember, easy to measure, and easy to use for motivation. But the human body does not operate according to round numbers. In energy metabolism, the body does not care how far you walk. It cares when you move. You may reach 10,000 steps in a day, but if all of them happen in the morning, the body still has to handle glucose spikes after lunch and dinner passively. This is like cleaning the house once in the morning, then spending the rest of the day putting more things out without cleaning again. The problem of modern metabolic health is not complete lack of movement, but lack of movement at the right time. After every meal, the body enters an energy processing state. Glucose rise. Insulin rise. Fat burning pauses. If you stay seated, all the cleanup work must be done by hormones alone. If you stand up and walk, muscles join the process immediately. Just 10 minutes of light muscle contraction is enough to open glucose transport channels into muscle. This reduces the need for insulin, reduces pressure on the pancreas, and shortens the time the body stays in storage mode. When this repeats after every meal, the cumulative effect is large. Fewer glucose spikes, less insulin, less visceral fat accumulation, better insulin sensitivity, more stable energy during the day. Many people try to solve the problem by training harder, but ignore small moments like after meals. Meanwhile, those exact moments determine how the body handles energy every day. You do not need to change your whole workout schedule. You do not need to run more. You do not need to force yourself to reach a higher number. You only need to add one very small habit. Stand up after eating. Walk for 10 minutes. Let the muscles do their job. Conclusion: metabolic health does not come from doing more, but from sending the right signal at the right time. When it comes to movement, many people always think more is better. Walk more, train longer, burn more calories. But biology does not work that way. The body does not only respond to how much you move, It responds to the signals you send at specific times during the day. After a meal, the body is in a very special state. Glucose rise. Insulin rise. Storage mode is activated. If no other signal appears, the body stays in this mode until the excess energy is processed. The problem is that in modern life, meals happen many times, but movement at the right moment happens very rarely. We eat and sit. Sit and eat again. Eat and sit again. When this repeats every day, blood sugar rises many times. Insulin rises many times, and the body spends most of its time in storage mode. Over time, this reduces insulin sensitivity, increases visceral fat, and makes daily energy unstable. What is important to notice is that you do not need to change everything to break this cycle. A small signal at the right moment can change the metabolic response. Walking for 10 minutes after eating is not a big workout, but it sends a very clear message to the body. The energy that just entered is being used. When muscles work, glucose goes into muscle instead of fat. When glucose is used immediately, insulin does not need to rise as high. When insulin does not rise as high, fat burning can return sooner. That is why this small habit can affect health more than trying to reach a step number every day. 10,000 steps is not wrong, but it does not tell the whole story. You may walk a lot, but if you always sit after eating, the body still has to handle energy the harder way. On the other hand, just moving at the right time allows the body to balance itself more easily. Metabolic health does not come from extreme effort. It comes from small signals repeated every day. Stand up after eating. Walk a few minutes. Let the muscles work. Let insulin rest. Let fat stay unlocked. If you understand this, you do not need to obsess over step counts anymore. You only need to remember one simple rule. After eating, do not sit down immediately. If this video helped you see movement from a clearer biological perspective, please subscribe. We do not talk about quick hacks. We explain how the body really works, so you can change your health through understanding, not through force. Leave a comment below. When do you usually walk during the day? Just changing the timing can change the way your body handles energy.